The hallway smelled faintly of roses and champagne, a reminder of the celebration waiting for me tomorrow. My heels clicked against the tiles as I approached Ethan's suite, bouquet in hand, rehearsing the words I'd say when I surprised him. I wanted one last stolen moment before we became husband and wife. My hand trembled as I reached for the door, excitement making my chest tight. But the second the door opened, excitement curdled into horror. Laughter, low, familiar, spilled out. And then I saw them. Ethan, shirt half off, tangled in the sheets. Claire, my maid of honor, scrambling to cover herself. Their smiles froze the instant they saw me, the air thick with wine, sweat, and betrayal. My bouquet slipped from my fingers, petals scattering like broken glass across the floor. For one raw second, I couldn't breathe, my mind a blur of disbelief, shock, and the quiet, rising fury that would shape everything to come. It's not what it looks like, Ethan stammered, eyes wide and guilty. Claire's hands trembled as she whispered, I can explain, please. The room seemed to shrink around me, their words hollow, meaningless. My pulse pounded as I stood frozen, watching the people I trusted most unravel in front of me. Ethan and I had spent years building toward this day. Invitations carefully mailed, seats meticulously assigned, guests flying in from across the country. Claire was supposed to be my witness, my sister in everything except blood. Seeing her like that, laughing, intimate, careless, split reality into before and after, leaving a cold void where trust had lived. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. The details were grotesque and vivid. Lipstick smudged on Ethan's collar, a hotel receipt with 2 chocolates tucked in his coat pocket, Claire's phone buzzing with a half-visible message like a neon confession. My mind snapped between noticing and recoiling. The room smelled like cheap champagne and something metallic, sweat mixing with sweetness, and my stomach turned in waves I couldn't quiet. I trusted you, I whispered under my breath, almost a hiss. I froze. My hands shook. The bouquet lay between us, petals bruised like the scene itself. Normally, I am underestimated. My smile, my calm demeanor, the way I run flawless events without raising my voice. But those quiet strengths now gave me tools they would never suspect. I knew every switch, every staffer who would obey a word from me without question. I closed the door slowly, letting it click behind me. I could have screamed, stormed back in, thrown every word and object I could reach at them. But my mind moved differently. I went to the bathroom, locked it, and stared at the tiles while my pulse hammered. I muttered, think, plan, don't ruin everything. I had less than 24 hours before the vows. One night to plan, one night to set the scales right. I scribbled a list on the back of a receipt, expose them publicly, ensure consequences ripple socially, leave intact with dignity. Writing steadied me, giving structure to raw emotion. The chaos in my chest translated into precision. Every step calculated, every move silent yet inevitable. I wouldn't let this moment destroy me. I would make it define me. They won't get away with this, I whispered to the empty bathroom. The first step was proof. Screenshots of messages between them, the hotel key card hidden in Ethan's jacket, a half-recorded voicemail Claire forgot to delete, her laugh sharp and careless. I played it once, then again. Each replay hardened me. Tears were a luxury I couldn't afford. I needed clarity, and I needed leverage. Remember everything, I said quietly, as if the walls themselves could hold the memory for me. I messaged the venue with calm, professional words, volunteering to do a final AV check, since the usual technician had a family emergency. They thanked me. Nothing seemed suspicious. Yet this small access, microphones, projectors, screens, was now mine to orchestrate. The ceremony would run on my terms, every witness unaware of the truth encoded into the day. I loaded a USB with evidence, audio, messages, timestamps, scheduled an email to Ethan's office, his parents, and key friends, timed to coincide with the vows. Distribution matters as much as proof. Alone, these facts could be ignored. Shared, they became unstoppable. I smiled faintly, a curve that masked the storm inside. Jenna, one of the bridesmaids, nearly caught me while checking microphones. "Why are you checking the mics so obsessively?" she asked. I gave her a look, quiet, measured, revealing a fragment of the truth. Perfection is often the cover for disaster. "Just making sure everything's perfect," I whispered, letting the lie slide like a blade. Her wide eyes blinked, acknowledgement settling between us. She left without a word. My chest tightened. This world of small victories and careful control was mine to navigate. I remembered the moments that made this hurt more than betrayal alone. Claire at my bedside when my mother suffered a stroke, her hands steady, her voice soft. Nights when my father walked out and she stayed awake with me, letting me collapse onto her couch. That history made the pain sharper, the fury quieter, the plan more deliberate. I wouldn't act out of impulse. I would act as the architect of consequence. Morning arrived deceptively ordinary. Flowers smelled sweet. Hairdressers laughed. Photographers buzzed. My father straightened his tie, beaming. Everything looked perfect. Only I knew the room was rigged for exposure. My dress felt like armor. Each pin, each layer reinforced not innocence, but the readiness to execute my plan without hesitation. Everything will unfold exactly as it should, I muttered under my breath. I moved through rehearsal with calm precision, adjusted microphones, nodded at the efficient, checked seating arrangements. If anyone expected panic, they misread me entirely. I practiced the lines I might speak, not in anger, but as statements of fact. Names, dates, evidence, all memorized. I would be exact. Emotion would be contained, silent but lethal. Twice I checked the email schedule, reading recipients aloud. Ethan's company, parents, close friends, bridesmaids. Every contact counted. Timing was crucial. The room, the ceremony, the witnesses, all had to align to the moment of reveal. My pulse steadied. I was no longer the bride about to be ruined. I was the conductor of their reckoning. The bouquet rested heavy in my hand, each flower a quiet reminder of expectation, tradition, and the perfect lie I had been living. I lifted it once more, checked the mirrors, ensured no detail could betray my resolve. Every step to the altar, every glance at guests would carry the weight of what I had prepared. Silence would speak louder than screams, and every eye would witness the consequences of their choices. I rehearsed micro-movements, the tilt of my head, the briefest pauses between steps. I moved through the halls, acknowledging smiles, nodding to staff, carrying myself with an elegance that concealed the engine of vengeance inside. I had become invisible and hypervisible at once. They had given me the moment. I would wield it like a scalpel. With each step closer to the ceremony, adrenaline merged with purpose. I was calm but electric, aware of every detail. The sound of heels on marble, the scent of lilies, the whispered instructions of the photographer. This day, which was supposed to be a celebration, would become the stage where truth could not hide. Every eye, every witness, every photo taken would witness the exposure I had orchestrated. The morning sun spilled through the cathedral windows as I took my first step down the aisle. Each heel clicked like a countdown, each breath measured. The guests buzzed softly, unaware of the storm lying beneath the polished smiles and silk gowns. I clutched my bouquet, petals heavy with expectation and hidden fury, feeling the tension coil in my chest like a living thing. Ethan spotted me from the altar, his smile faltering. "Maya, please," he whispered under his breath, panic flickering in his eyes. Claire's head ducked behind the flowers of a bridesmaid, lips pressed thin. I didn't answer. I didn't even glance at them. Silence was my weapon. I let the whispers of the congregation and the soft rustle of dresses fill the space, amplifying their guilt in a room that assumed bliss. As I approached, I felt every pair of eyes scanning me, but none were tuned to the betrayal I carried. My father's hands were steady on my arm, his pride a mask over ignorance. I adjusted my grip on the bouquet, subtly pressing the USB stick hidden beneath the petals. Every flower concealed a record of truth, a timed revelation, a reckoning waiting for the precise moment. The officiant began, his voice formal, practiced. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered." I tuned it out, counting breaths, noting positions. Cameras angled just so, phones poised to capture vows. Each person became part of a stage I controlled invisibly. I had rehearsed this, down to the microsecond the scheduled email would fire. The room was perfect. Their exposure would be cleaner than any scene I could stage. Ethan's gaze flicked to Claire once, then quickly away. "It's not what it looks like," he murmured, hoping for a miracle of denial. Claire's whispered, almost pleading, "I didn't mean..." My chest tightened. Every syllable they spoke was a nail in their own coffin, every hesitation an admission. I held my posture, smiled faintly at guests, and let my calmness burn like acid through the air between us. During the vows, I felt the scheduled email silently glide through cyberspace, offices, parents, friends, all receiving evidence with timestamps, messages, recordings. My pulse thrummed in anticipation. The ritual words of love and devotion echoed around me, but the undercurrent was chaos no one yet knew existed. In every heartbeat's pause, I imagined the moment they read the truth. Halfway through the ceremony, a subtle vibration in my clutch reminded me that the first recipients had opened the files. I exhaled quietly. A flicker of confusion and concern must have already reached Ethan. I maintained the mask of a bride, the perfect smile for everyone, while inside I was a storm contained in crystal. One wrong look, one flinch, and the room would read them before the emails fully landed. Claire's trembling hand brushed her face. She leaned slightly toward Ethan, whispering, "What do we do now?" He shook his head, lips pressed tight, no answer coming. Theirs was a silent panic I could see but not react to. Every second I walked the aisle, every glance I cast at the gathered crowd magnified their exposure. No one else suspected the tension, but it hummed like electricity above the polished marble. I reached the altar, stopping just short. My father gave a nod, smiling, unaware. I looked at Ethan, eyes calm, icy, unblinking. "Shall we continue?" I asked softly, a voice too steady, too measured. It was a question that carried threat and control. Ethan's throat moved, words forming, but nothing came out. Claire's fingers clenched into fists, her knuckles white against the silk. As the officiant instructed Ethan to repeat his vows, I noticed his hesitation. He stumbled over the words, voice catching. I let a faint smile curve my lips, subtle but deliberate. Every falter, every stutter, amplified the weight of the truth racing through cyberspace, the evidence now impossible to ignore. Their private world had collided with mine and with everyone around us. A small gasp came from the guests' row nearest to Ethan's parents. I couldn't see their screens, but I could feel the ripple of shock, confusion, and sudden whispers. Emails opened, attachments clicked, revelations viewed. My pulse steadied, adrenaline merging with cold satisfaction. I had orchestrated it flawlessly. This was the apex of control, the culmination of all the hours spent in silence, observation, and planning. Claire's eyes met mine, wide, pleading, raw with shame. "Maya, please," she whispered. I raised a finger to my lips. "Shh," almost maternal in tone, almost mocking. Their panic was a private symphony that only I could conduct. Every word, every flicker of guilt was amplified against the blissful ignorance of the guests. I was a shadow behind the facade, letting the invisible walls of truth do the work. The vows continued mechanically, almost ritualistic. I repeated mine flawlessly, diction clear, voice strong. Each phrase a barrier, each sentence an assertion of dignity and control. The guests' faces were a mix of expectation and curiosity, none yet knowing the undercurrent, and that made it all the more delicious. The silent hum of incoming revelations was my accompaniment, invisible yet palpable. By the time the rings were exchanged, Ethan's posture had shifted. Shoulders tight, jaw clenched, the veneer of composure cracking. Claire's eyes darted toward the screens, mouth opening to form words that would never reach me. I held their gaze, calm, unbroken, letting my silence speak volumes. Every subtle movement of mine reinforced dominance over a betrayal I had meticulously exposed. The officiant asked if anyone objected. My father looked at me, prideful, ready to beam. I shook my head, serene. No objections from me, only the truth silently traveling, gathering shockwaves, reshaping their reality. Ethan's lips pressed thin, Claire's fingers fidgeting with a bracelet, their attempts to regain composure futile. The ritual of the wedding had become a theater of exposure. After the ceremony, congratulations flowed like water, meaningless platitudes brushing against the hidden undercurrent. Cameras clicked, capturing smiles, embraces, all overlaid with the knowledge only I possessed. Every hug, every handshake, a contrast to the betrayal now unfurling digitally. My calm smile hid the satisfaction of control achieved, timing executed flawlessly. I drifted to a corner, unseen, observing reactions subtly shifting. Ethan's parents exchanged concerned glances, friends whispered, phones buzzed in pockets. Claire's composure fractured with every vibration, every glance at her screen. She mouthed words that never reached ears. We can fix this? Silence met her plea. I remained still, a statue of measured control. During the first dance, I moved gracefully, body flowing with music, but eyes scanning, noting every twitch, every whisper, every falter. Ethan's face was a map of panic, Claire's a mask of guilt. Every motion confirmed the private chaos their actions had wrought, now spilling into the public sphere. The hidden orchestra of truth played silently, unseen yet devastating. By the end of the evening, guests applauded, oblivious to the tension beneath. I slipped away, small victories logged mentally, the USB and messages having served their purpose. I knew who had seen, who hadn't, and every reaction would continue to ripple long after the music ended. The room was a tableau of bliss-masking ruin. Finally, in the quiet of the suite, I allowed myself a small breath. No tears, no screams. Just the knowledge of control, precision, and inevitability. Betrayal had been met with measured response. Exposure achieved, dignity intact. For one raw second earlier, I had frozen in shock. Now I stood victorious, silent yet sovereign, the architect of consequences flawlessly executed. Even as I removed my shoes, the echo of the wedding music still ringing, I allowed my mind to drift briefly to Claire and Ethan. Their attempts to reconcile, to apologize, to justify, irrelevant. I had already won the only battle that mattered. I controlled the story, the narrative, the outcome, and no one else would ever forget it.